The woke church is in really big trouble. Greetings, I'm JC Pilter, and this is JCPC Apologetics. Well, hello, and welcome to another Friday and another video. Today is a little bit spontaneous because I was reading through the book of Matthew, which is where I am in my devotions at this point in time. And I came across a chapter which I've heard being thrown around a lot these days. And it really kind of jumped out at me because of that. And it's something that's very pertinent and very important to this place and time. So I thought, hey, why not make a real quick video dealing with that? So this comes from Matthew 18, starting in verse 21. And with that said, let's go ahead and dive in and read. It says, "Then Peter came up and said to him, 'Lord, how often will my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? As many as 7 times? Jesus said to him, 'I do not say to you 7 times, but 70 times 7. Therefore the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants. When he began to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. And since he could not pay his master, ordered him to be sold with his wife and children and all that he had, in payment to be made. So the servant fell on his knees, imploring him, "Have patience with me, I will repay you everything." And out of pity for him, the master of that servant released him and forgave him the debt. But when that same servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. And seizing him, he began to choke him, saying, "Pay what you owe." So his fellow servant fell down and pleaded with him, "Have patience with me, and I will pay you." He refused and went and put him in prison until he should pay the debt. When his fellow servants saw what had taken place, they were greatly distressed, and they went and reported to their master all that had taken place. Then his master summoned him and said to him, "You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. And should not you have had mercy on your fellow servant as I had mercy on you?" And in anger his master delivered him to the jailers until he should pay all his debt. So also my heavenly Father will do to every one of you if you do not forgive your brother from your heart. So we have a very interesting passage here. As you could hear, I don't need to explain it too much. The Bible's pretty clear. You had the story of a master who is God in the situation, and a servant. The servant owed a great debt, was forgiven the debt, and then found one of his fellow servants who owed just, it was a sizable debt in that time, but not anything compared to what he owed. And he refused to forgive the debt, tried to have the guy thrown in prison and whatnot. And his fellow servants went to the father and said, "Hey, what this guy's doing is not good." And eventually, the guy who was originally forgiven got thrown in jail for it. And this is very, very interesting because we have our woke church today that is pushing all the critical race theory nonsense out there, saying that certain people owe other people today because of things that happened between these people groups in the past. And the reason why I'm not just saying black people and white people, because anybody who knows what critical race theory is today understands it's not just white versus black. Today it's white versus black. That's what we're saying. White people owe black people because of slavery. What most people who are pushing that don't realize is that it starts there. Tomorrow it's going to be straight people owe gay people. The next day it's going to be Christianity owes every other religion. This is how it always works. So I am being very vague in terminology, not because I don't want to get canceled, but because this thing spans far beyond the black-white discussion. But it's simply that. Any Christian who is pushing CRT, which most of them are happy to push the black-white thing, half of them are happy to push the gay-straight thing, very few of them will push the Christian versus other religions thing, but I'm seeing that becoming very popular right now. The simple fact of the matter is, if you are genuinely born again, and part of the problem is many of these guys are not, but if you are genuinely born again Christian, and you have been, and you understand what has happened, you understand what Christ has forgiven you of, what he has cleansed you of, how dare you hold the sins of dead people against the descendants of people today? That is wrong. That is a violation of this text, plain and simple. If you are demanding reparations, I'm sorry, you are violating this chapter right here. Now, here's the thing. He was, in this situation, forgiving a debt that actually existed. The servant who refused to forgive, it wasn't that the other servant didn't know him. The servant actually did owe him. When it comes to the discussions of CRT today, none of the guilty parties actually owe anything. But let's, for the sake of argument, say that white people today have harmed in legitimate ways black people today, by, as a system, as a whole. The Christian thing for the black person to do is to forgive. And I know what people are going to say. They're going to get mad and they're going to say, well, what if the shoe was on the other foot? Yeah. If, black people are doing wrong to white people, they ought to forgive. Many of you people know, for the last 3 years, I have worked for, basically driving a bus across country, visiting many churches, many denominations, many different things. Been to a lot of black churches, and I have been treated like garbage, like absolute garbage you wouldn't believe, in some of these churches. Now, some of the best churches I've gone to have been predominantly black churches, but I've also had some horror stories as well. I forgive those people. I'm not demanding apologies from them. I'm not demanding that people pay me back in some way. I forgive them and I move on. That's what Christians do. Yes, slavery did happen. Slavery is a bad thing. But you not forgiving white people today, though many white people today are not descendants of slave owners, they don't owe you anything. And even if they did, it's your job as a believer to forgive. This constant grievance culture that we have right now is destructive. It is a signal that many of the people in our churches aren't really saved, because if you understand, again, what Christ has done for, forgive you, you'll automatically see the wrongs that people have done against you or against your group as, obviously it's a big deal in our eyes, but not as big a deal as what we did to God. Guys, we need to be more forgiving. Forgiveness is something that comes very hard for people. It seems to me like when you talk to people about sins they have troubles getting over, pride is number one and forgiveness is number two. I guess unforgiveness. Forgiveness is what you want to do. Those are very hard things for us to deal with. I'm not asking this saying that it's easy to do. No, there are many things in the Bible that are simple, easy to understand, but difficult in practice. Takes God's grace to be able to do. But I can think about times in my past where I have had people who have legitimately wronged me, and in one case in particular, I was very unforgiving for 2 or 3 years. And for those of you who are appalled, yes, it was a very bad thing for me to hold a grudge for 2 or 3 years. But you know how I got over it? I got over it the same way, basically through this passage, by realizing, oh wait, the debt that was, that I owe is far greater than the debt that this person owed to me. The wrong that I did to Christ is nothing, or is far, far, far greater compared to the wrong that this other person did to me. Grievance culture is one of the most wicked things that our culture has invented in recent years. It's definitely something that is contrary in every way to the gospel, should not be in the church. Guys, we need to move on from this. We need to let this go. This will never, you can pay all the reparations in the world. Nothing will change. Nothing's going to change, because all you're doing when you're talking about grievances is stirring up. I think of that verse in Proverbs says, "He that repeats a matter separates friends." When you repeat things, bad things from the past, you automatically make enemies. That's how it works. Here's the fact. Most people who are poor today are poor because of poor decisions. If it was about skin color, there wouldn't be any rich black people out there, but there are. There was this insane thing that came out, and I think Cory Booker came up with this idea to pay every black person in America $1 million and something for reparations. Now, aside from the fact that that's just impossible, there's not that much money in the world. If we did it, what you would find in 50 years, almost all those people that you paid reparations to who were poor will still be poor. They'll waste all of the $1 million. You say, that's impossible. Is it? Let's go to the NBA and the NFL. Most of those folks making millions and millions of dollars every year, a good portion of them are broke by the time they retire, working at, grocery stores and things like that. You can pay the reparations, but it will never be enough, because the issue that is boiling in our culture is not an issue of people need more money. The issue is people need more forgiveness. People need to learn to forgive. People need to overlook a transgression. There are serious things that need to be dealt with. Racial prejudice, partiality, those things are wrong. They need to be dealt with. But constantly stirring up animosity between people, that is satanic, that is evil, that's got to stop. Saying that sin can only go one way, that only a certain group can be racist, to use the term, and there might be some cases of reverse racism. No, there's no such thing as reverse racism. There's just partiality. There is ethnic hatred. They go both ways. And by the way, any other group out there you can create. Guys, a mature Christian forgives. It's hard to do. I'm not making that case at all that, it's just easy. Just forgive them, move on. No, I get it. Some of the most bitter people I've met are black people who have been told their whole life that white people are keeping them down. I get it. You're bitter, you're angry. You've been told your whole life that these people are out to get you. And there may be a case here or there yonder, but guess what? As a major rule, there aren't that many out there to get you. But the ones who have legitimately done you wrong, I don't doubt there are people out there who have said things, done things. I've met some people who are legitimately ethnically partial. You still have to forgive them. It's not the unforgivable sin. In fact, it's not even the worst sin. There are far worse sins in our culture. Take, for example, the murder of children, which is endorsed by almost every group who is pushing the CRT thing out there. I'm not downplaying it, but I'm saying, guys, you got to get over this. And this expands far beyond even the CRT subject. Many Christians, if you go to most churches today, you will find that there are people in the same church who will not talk to each other. They might look alike by skin tone, but they don't talk to each other. They don't interact with each other. They're in the same church, but there's nothing there. And it's because of some sort of unforgiveness in the past. Church, forgive. That's one of the most Christ-like things you can do, is forgive people. If there's anybody who has a right to hold grievances against another, it is God against all of humanity. And yet he has saved a people for himself. Now, my last thing I will say as a warning to those in the CRT camp, whether it's black people holding grudges against white people, whether it is, fill in the blank. Because here's one thing, grievance culture is a God that is ever hungry. You can satisfy the black versus white thing for a while, but guess what? It'll find someone else to start a fight with. That's what it does. And eventually the black and white thing will come back in style, and you'll see it all over again. again, like I said, there's no amount of reparations you can pay to end this. It will continue to spiral out of control. It's what it's designed to do. But using the black versus white as an example, slavery did happen. Terrible thing. By the grace of God, it has been ended, but you're still holding a grudge today. That is, aside from the fact that it's sinful in regards to this passage, and remember, God delivered them up to the prison, and there's a lot of debate on whether that is saying that, some people have taught that you could lose your salvation, God will send you to hell. If that's the case, there are lots of people in our churches today who would be going to hell. I do not believe that at all, though, because the Bible is clear that your salvation is something that is wrought of God. Nothing can snatch you out of his hand, not even yourself. And so God, once he has forgiven you, he will see to it that he will persevere you to the end. But there is some sort of earthly, prison, basically, that comes with you being, not having forgiveness. It might be evidence that you are never saved, because it's very hypocritical for you to not forgive people, because it shows in that moment that you really don't understand what Christ did for you. So, either you are unsaved or you are just in a very bad place spiritually. Either way, the bottom line is this. In the law, the Bible said very clearly that the children of Israel says, you shall not hate an Egyptian. And you think, that's a weird verse. Why doesn't it say you shouldn't hate anybody? You shouldn't hate the Amalekites. You should not hate the Canaanites. You should not hate the Perizzites and all those other ites. The bottom line was, they said you shall not hate the Egyptians because they were the ones who were their masters in times past. And the Bible recognizes that it is easy to hold grudges against those who have wronged you in the past. We let those things go. We forgive. And that's my call. That's all I'm asking for. Forgive people. That's what we as Christians are called to do. And if you have come to this video and you are holding ethnic hatred in your heart, or any sort of other hatred, or holding past grievances against people, I recommend that you click on this video that I have linked afterwards called What is the Gospel? And there I'll explain to you what the gospel teaches about forgiveness and what Christ has forgiven for you. But with that said, God bless. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. Oh, and as a side note, whoever you are who's going through my videos and, thumbs downing everything, hey, I forgive you too. By the way, the YouTube algorithm likes it when you go through my videos, interacting with every one of them like that. It says that there's some controversy there and that's something worth promoting. So I thank you for the free promo, and I forgive the ill intentions of your heart as well. Thank you very much. God bless. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment below, and feel free to like and share it so others can see it as well. Also, subscribe so that you can keep up to date on future videos. And as always, please check below to see resources that I've used that might help you further your studies. God bless and have a great day.